1300 hours GMT edition on Sunday, the 14th of May 2023. KhoodeelaarTV television channel broadcasting under the banner of BabyAngelGeronimo editions. And we didn't broadcast anything on Saturday, the 13th of May 2023. And hopefully we shall be able to cover some of the essay-length items that we have been allocating for updated commentary. Now, the Sun on Sunday, which is the de facto replacement by Rupert Murdoch, the dirty digger, after Murdoch was exposed as having allowed the news of this cruise to hack, sadistically hack the telephone belonging to the by then already murdered Millie Dowler. So the dirty digger Rupert Murdoch was forced to scrap the news of this cruise under the pressure of the disgrace that was heaped on him in 2011. Two things happened in 2011, 12 years ago. One was that the hacking posthumously of the telephone belonging to the child Millie Dowler became unstoppable as the subject of outraged opinions across the country, despite the fact that most people are zombified and do not bat an eyelid, do not really raise serious, genuine objections, as has happened in the last 10 days, let's say, since the brutal murder of the two baby dogs, Marshall and Millions, who were with their human dad, Louis, since they were puppies. And the London Metropolitan Police murdered in cold blood, right in front of Louis' eyes. I cannot watch the footage. There is a limit to what can be tolerated. So the questions that arise about the London Metropolitan Police following their slaughter of these two babies must not be allowed to be forgotten. And the babies, Marshall and Millions, shall have justice. As much justice as is humanly possible, to be organized by campaigning. And our campaign is dedicating our resources and our abilities to supporting everyone who is behind Louis in getting justice for his babies. So this is another essay-length commentary that we shall be publishing and updating on. Now, the Sun on Sunday has got a stupid front page splash featuring the white girlfriend of the black footballer, Rio Ferdinand. That is the kind of ideal, the sick-making ideal promoted by the racists is a white woman involved in a positive relationship, I mean, they cannot spend enough space, time, resources to promoting that. Contrast that with their abject silence and factor complicity, collusion with the murders of innocent black men by the London Metropolitan Police, for example, which happens every single year. Now, quite apart from the fact that Rio Ferdinand is posing in the picture with his white girlfriend holding her right hand on her tummy, which is supposedly pregnant, there is nothing inside the paper, absolutely nothing about the various serious issues concerning the existence of the London Metropolitan Police. There should be, and I'll say why. So there was this thing published by the Metropolitan Police themselves called Baroness Case Final Report. And it says an independent review into the standards of behavior and internal culture of the Metropolitan Police Service. They say service, but it's not really ever seen as behaving as a service of any description whatsoever. And Baroness Casey, Casey, of Blackstock, DBECB, these are the frighteningly intimidating titles that she has been given now. Now, in Casey's report, let's see what the review, that is Baroness Casey's review, has also seen an unwillingness inside the London Metropolitan Police. Well, I'm saying the London Metropolitan Police instead of the Met, because the Met is a confusing word. It often can be mistaken for meteorological office. So, in order to avoid any confusion in the reading, I am doing the full description. The London Metropolitan Police, so there has been an unwillingness inside the London Metropolitan Police to interrogate whether there are broader issues around race, desensitization, and systemic bias towards black children. And there is a quote there. It's more incompetence rather than a deliberate act. It's not institutional racism or corruption. It is incompetence. We accept cops make errors, whereas the perception is that it is targeted action and malicious thought. There is a discord between what a member of public thinks and what we know. Now, this is an absolute lie. I know from experience that one to one the police in London over the last 50 plus years, individually, with the exception of two police women and one policeman in 50 plus years, with the exception of those three, the police interaction with individual black people, in the wider sense of the definition of the word black, which includes people of Asian background as well as African background. And there are pages and pages. There are pages and pages. There is this 363 pages of this review published in March 2023. Now, of the 363 pages, most of the contents, by definition, has had to be given to racism, sexism, negligence, illegality, wrongfulness, and criminality on the part of the police. So when they say in the news of the Screws replacement, the Sun on Sunday, they say exclusive, star, soups, and is a footballer. But the corruption by the tabloids of sports people and elevating them to stars is part of the corruption mind of the majority of the people who are brainwashed into thinking that England is the whole of the world. These are not stars. Rio Ferdinand is less criminally implicated in many of the things that are complained about sports, male sportsmen, footballers. But Ferdinand is not. Two things. Ferdinand is not empirically representative of the experience of 99.9999% of the black people, even if he is himself a mulatto, the black people of African and Caribbean backgrounds. So he is being given credit for nabbing intruder in home raid terror. And prowler held until police arrive. Now, would somebody like the dad of the two baby dogs murdered by the police, would he have anything remotely sympathetic to say about the police being called? The woman who was allegedly attacked by one of the two baby dogs by the marshal of millions did not want the police to be called, and she was not asked by anyone who did call the police whether she thought the incident warranted the police being called. These two baby dogs were murdered as part of the terrorizing operation by the London Metropolitan Police in areas like Tower Hamlets in Limehouse. Limehouse is literally minutes away from the Canary Wharf. Now, here on the police on page 327 of Louise Casey's report, she says, "We heard from black Londoners about a deep mistrust of the Metropolitan Police, resulting from years of over policing and under protection. The London Metropolitan Police deals with each incident by explaining the lawfulness or correctness of a procedure, but it ignores a much wider and deeper experience. Lack of trust is generational. While many families teach their children that police are there to keep you, that is, black people, safe, many black Londoners have to teach their children something different, that they should avoid contact with the police in case they are stopped or searched without cause. With each generation, that mistrust of the London Metropolitan Police deepens, says Louise Casey. We have we have been living in this hostile environment my whole life. I was born into this hostile situation. We carry that trauma. It has always been the backbone of the Afro Caribbean community. Since Windrush, there has been this relationship with the police. There is such a fundamental lack of trust in the Metropolitan Police, specifically within the black community. We just don't trust them. Now, this is a quotation from the Runnymede Trust that over policed and under protected the road to safer schools. That is the Runnymede Trust report that has been quoted there. Officers, that is policemen and women, working in schools report children saying, "I don't want to be a police officer. When I grow up, they are all racist." Children of 9, that is 9 years, who have this perception of officers, and it breaks my heart. Whoever is writing. Addressing this requires humility, accepting, and a commitment to sustained changes. I'll read that introduction again. Addressing this requires humility, accepting mistakes, and a commitment to sustained change. The public don't want to hear an apology. They want to hear that it won't happen again. They want to hear that people have been held to account, that steps have been taken so that things will be different now. Now, that is where we go back to the question of the Rupert Murdoch's scam on Sunday, story about Rio Ferdinand. Let's see if the camera actually catches any of it. It amazingly, that is the way the camera can actually catch this. And this is the thing. Now, when when Tony Blair introduced the racist, hostile environment against the Muslims and gave that agenda legitimacy through the creation of a thing called the Prevent program. It was created as an extension of the already existing anti Muslim hostility. Now, if you compare the expression Afro Caribbean, Windrush, with Muslim, you can get a practically realistic kind of comparison. Because there are no other two communities, say, nothing like even the Pakistanis, who are Muslim as well as, just like Bangladeshis. But the Pakistanis, if you say Pakistanis, until Suella Ibila Cruella got into the post as Home Secretary in the country, we shall come to Suella Ibila Cruella and her marked emphasis on creating additional hostility and aggravation against the Pakistanis. The nearest comparison between the racist policing aimed at Afro Caribbeans, that is the next item on the list. Let's say there are two items. One is the Afro Caribbeans as the targets, and the other is the Muslims. These are the only two groups in the demography in the United Kingdom that are particularly treated with aggravated hostility by the Metropolitan Police and by other police as well. Other police forces in the other big cities and other parts of the United Kingdom. When there is an exception, a departure from that, as happened with the Gollywogs pub in Essex, and the local police in Essex actually paid a visit to the pub. The very distinctly non white looking Interior Minister, Suella Ibila Braverman, hit the roof. She went spare and she went very, very angry. So angry that she made up a lot of kind of scenarios, absolutely false, to condemn the Essex police, condemn the Essex police for daring to visit that pub and talk to the pub owner about the offense that he had committed by putting out gollywogs. Now, gollywogs, if he had put up gollywogs without any comment at all, it would be bad enough. But he made it 100 times worse by publicly stating that gollywogs were about lynching black people in America, south of America, Mississippi. Is it Mississippi? Let's check on the gollywogs comment that he made. So this is a piece on the Guardian website, which was posted on Thursday, the 13th of April, exactly a month ago, at 1200 hours BST, British Standard Time, and it's headed Essex Police Examine Gully Doll Pub. Okay. Essex Police examine Gully Doll Pub landlord's racist Facebook posts. So, what he did, not only did he put up the Gollywog dolls, but he made that racist act 1,000 times worse by boasting. And let's check what the Guardian is saying. Police to look at comments by Christopher Riley, who apparently joked about Mississippi lynching next to doll images. So, this pub, can you believe it? Irony is not the word. The White Hart Inn in Grays, Essex, was the scene of a police raid last week to remove gollywogs, photographed David Levine, The Guardian. Police investigated an alleged hate crime over the display of golly dolls in an Essex pub, White Hart Inn in Grays, Essex, are to examine online messages by the pub's landlord, in which he apparently joked about Mississippi lynchings alongside an image of the racist dolls. Christopher Riley, the licensee of the White Hart Inn in Grays, Essex, regularly posts on Facebook to express far right views and share content from anti immigrant commentators such as Hopkins. In March 2016, in a Facebook post still online, Riley uploaded a picture of golly dolls hanging from his bar with the comment, "We have our gollywogs." Yeah. Commenting on the post, his wife, Bernice Riley, asked, "Are you sure this is legal?" Lol, lol, she is laughing. The landlord replied, "They used to hang them in Mississippi years ago." I'll come to the hanging of them in Mississippi years ago shortly after finishing this Guardian piece. Essex police confiscated the Golly dolls last week after receiving a complaint about an alleged crime. The force has now confirmed that detectives conducting the investigation are aware of Riley's Facebook posts. It is understood the posts are being reviewed as part of the investigation. Riley is due to be interviewed by Essex police next month, that is May, and we shall come to that whether they have interviewed him yet or not. When he returns from the family's holiday home in Marmaris on the southern Turkish coast, it is believed investigation is focusing on establishing whether he intended to cause offense by displaying the dolls. One other possible line of inquiry is whether his posts flout the 1988 Malicious Communication Act. Earlier this week, a source close to Suella Braverman suggested Essex police had been reprimanded by the Home Secretary. The police force, Essex police, denied this claim. In 2018, Riley was asked by his local council to explain the dolls in the pub's bar, but he denied they were racist. Posting, posting about that on Facebook, he said, "Today I have had a call from our council licensing department because some snowflake has decided that they think they are racist. We have even gone to the police to complain that it could constitute racial aggravation. I never invited this person in. If they are not happy, go elsewhere. Our customers bring these items in from their travels. We have a lot of colored customers. Can you believe that? Colored, who have never complained. In July last year, Riley complained about the prospect of a Muslim prime minister in an apparent mistaken reference to Rishi Sunak, who is a Hindu. He said, "We now have the prospect of a Muslim prime minister along with other Muslim mayors throughout the UK. Don't get me wrong, I choose to live in a Muslim country here in Turkey. Did all the UK population agree to live under a Muslim regime?" Muammar Gaddafi said in 2008, "We don't need guns or bombs. We will simply outbreed Europeans." In May 2021, Riley complained about media coverage of the US police murder of George Floyd, writing, "Why are MSM dragging up George Floyd a year after he died? What about our own people who have died? Lee Rigby, why does he not get mentioned? Sorry, I forgot he was white. That don't count." In 2017, Riley likened the C2C train line connecting Essex to central London to an image of an Indian railway engine with dozens of people clinging on outside. That year, he also shared a photograph of activists from the far right group Generation Identity unfurled a banner that said, "Stop Islamification" from London's Westminster Bridge. On Tuesday, his wife Bernice Riley denied the dolls were racist and has since replaced them. Christopher Riley has been approached for comment. Meanwhile, Chris Philp, the policing minister, speaking about the confiscated dolls, said it was up to police to decide how they respond to incidents. Asked an why it took 5 police staff to remove the collection, Philp said, "I'm not going to answer yes or no because they are operationally independent and it's up to police to decide how they respond to incidents, not up to me to tell them what to do or to offer comments after the event." Sundar Kwala, the director of integration think tank British Future, said, "It's important that police can do their job. These Facebook posts are important because they suggest the intent of displaying the gollywogs is to depict lynching or hanging, which takes us into much stronger territory of harassment and racially aggravated hate crime than the impression some people have that they were just teddy bears and gollywogs sitting on a shelf." Atwala added, "Saying this is just a joke is clearly intended to be quite aggressive and intimidatory. It isn't the sort of joke that the council or the police should allow in a pub. This article was amended on the 13th of April 2023 to rename the dolls in line with style guidance. Now, what somewhere else has appeared is that the police, Essex police, have denied that Suella Braverman contacted them at all. The wiki entry on Golliwogs says is a doll-like character created by cartoonist and author Florence Kate Upton, which appeared in children's books in the late 19th century, usually depicted as a type of rag doll. It was reproduced both by commercial and hobby toy makers as a children's soft toy called the Gollywog, a portmanteau of golly and pollywog, and had great popularity in the southern United States, the United Kingdom, South Africa, and Australia into the 1970s. The doll is characterized by jet black eyes rimmed in white, exaggerated red lips, and frizzy hair. Based on the blackface minstrel tradition. Since the 20th century, the word has been considered a racial slur towards black people. The Gollywog is controversial, being widely considered a racist caricature of black people, alongside ninnies, minstrels, and mammy figures. The Jim Crow Museum of Racist Memorabilia described the Gollywog as the least known of the major anti black caricatures in the United States. Changing political attitudes with regard to race have reduced the popularity and sales of gollywogs as toys. Manufacturers who have used gollywogs as a motif, that is, Robertson's Marmalade UK, have either withdrawn them as an icon or changed the name. Alternative names such as Golly and Golly Doll have also been adopted due to association with the racial slur wog, which many dictionaries say from Gollywog. And there is a longer discussion about the history and culture. In 1983, Robertson's products were boycotted by Ken Livingstone's Greater London Council due to their offensiveness. And in 1988, the character ceased to be used in television advertising. The company used to give away gollywog badges and small plaster figures playing musical instruments or sports and other themes. Okay, so going back to the reference to Mississippi, as I said, we'll go back to the Mississippi after reading the Guardian piece, and I'm going to check on the Mississippi entry. So there is this item on the Washington Post, and the picture of black people in a church, I think. And its heading is Lynchings in Mississippi Never Stopped. Jackson, Mississippi. Since 2000, there have been at least 8 suspected lynchings of black men and teenagers in Mississippi, according to court records and police reports. The last recorded lynching in the United States was in 1981, said Jill Colin Jefferson, a lawyer and founder of Julian, a civil rights organization named after the late civil rights leader Julian Bond. But the thing is, lynchings never stopped in the United States. Lynchings in Mississippi never stopped. The evil bastard just stopped taking photographs and passing them around like baseball cards. Jefferson was born in Jones County, Mississippi, which is an epicenter of the Ku Klux Klan's reign of terror during the civil rights movement. Coming from Mississippi and seeing stuff intersect, talking about this stuff is like talking about what happened down the road, said Jefferson, a Harvard Law School graduate who trained as civil justice investigator with Bond. In 2017, Jefferson began compiling records of people found hanging or mutilated across the country. In 2019, Jefferson began focusing her investigation on Mississippi. In each case she investigated, law enforcement officials ruled as suicides, but the families said the victims had been lynched. Historically, lynchings were often defined as fatal hangings by mobs, often acting with impunity and in an extrajudicial capacity to create racial terror. Crowds of white people often gathered in town squares or on courthouse lawns to watch black people being lynched. From 1877 to 1950, more than 4,000 black men, women, and children were lynched in cities and towns across the country. According to the Equal Justice Initiative, a human rights organization based in Montgomery, Alabama, which opened the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in 2018 to honor thousands of lynching victims. During that period, Mississippi recorded 581, the highest number of lynchings recorded by state. Historians say lynchings often evoke the image of public hangings. However, EJI and the NAACP expanded the definition to include any extrajudicial racial terror, killing, and mutilation committed to uphold racial segregation and false premise of racial hierarchy. Now, remember this. This is the real context against which the over promotion of Rio Ferdinand is objectionable, because Ferdinand is black even when he is pictured next to his white girlfriend. He still looks black, even if he is possibly of mixed race parentage. And in being depicted as a normal, credible person, he is not representing the experience of black people, either here or in the USA. That is why it is objectionable. And the other thing is that the really heartbreaking, traumatizing experience that people have been going through about the murders by the London Metropolitan Police of these two baby dogs, Marshall and Millions. That should be on the front page of the Sun on Sunday, because the 363 or 60 373 pages long report by Luisi lists enough crimes and illegalities and wrongdoings by the London Metropolitan Police to oblige the newspapers to keep investigating what is going on in the police. And nothing could be more harrowing than the police behaving like an invasion force, descending on Limehouse in Tower Hamlets with all their killing weaponry in place and point blank murdering these two baby dogs in front of their human dad, whom they tasered and whom they charged. We shall be continuing with the essay length updates on the two baby dogs, Marshall and Millions, and the implications of their being murdered in Tower Hamlets. Now, there is absolutely nothing, about the baby dogs, Marshall and Millions, being murdered on Tower Hamlets premises, Tower Hamlets borders, within the area of the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, from the Tower Hamlets Local Council, nor indeed from the so called executive management allegedly in place for Tower Hamlets, nor has there been any comment from the mayor in the name of London, Sadiq Khan. Now, the way they murdered the baby dogs, Marshall and Millions, is a billion miles away from the so called policing by consent, as set out on page 63 of the Louis Casey report. The model of policing by consent reflects a belief in an ethical model of policing. Police officers serve as members of the public. Remember this. Police officers serve as members of the public in uniform, and they exercise powers with the consent, approval, support, and willing cooperation of other members of the public. The massacre, the slaughter, the murder of the baby dogs, Marshall and William, millions, was a billion miles away from this. And the entirety of the press today is completely stuffed with diversion, intentional diversions and lies and untruths, and an over promotion of the lies of the conservatives. Now, in the Sunday Times, and we're going to the death cult, they've got the main page one item is Kenyan death cult suffocated my baby, as its followers clapped and now this is a report by Matthew Campbell, and it claims that this piece is from filed from Kenya. Whether this guy Matthew Campbell left Kenya by the time it appears is not stated, but it is possible that he didn't stay in Kenya to accompany the appearance of this piece byline to him. Stephen Muiti, or Muiti, I think, holds up a blue check shirt and dark shorts that Samuel, his elder son, wore to school. They and a few old photographs are all he has left of the children and wife he lived with in Malindi, a tourist town on the Kenyan coast. It is early morning. Outside, through the door of Moiti's one room home, I can see other children in the same check shirt making their way through the slum along a path of red earth to school. But Samuel will not need the school uniform his mother Joan made for him anymore. The 9-year old and 5 younger siblings starved to death in a forest along with Joan after she joined a cult promising salvation from the end of the world. Tales of mass suicide began to emerge last month. Since then, the grim toll has become clearer. Clasping Samuel's shirt to his face, As if to breathe in a memory of him, Muiti 45 explained that his wife had been pregnant when she left home with the children several months ago. She had given birth to another son in the forest. Some survivors told me that my wife was allowed to breastfeed him for 1 day only, he said. After that, they closed his eyes. A hand was placed over his mouth and nose. He was suffocated. Everyone clapped and celebrated. The son I never met was going straight to heaven. Kenyan police said yesterday that they had recorded 201 bodies, many of them children, from shallow graves. In the Shakahula forest, several dozen people were rescued, but with more than 500 people associated with the cult still missing. The final toll is expected to be much greater. Paul Entenge Mackenzie, 50, a taxi driver turned evangelist, pastor, moved to the forest in 2019. His followers were allowed, I'll read that sentence again. His followers were allocated, I'll read that again. His followers were allotted areas with biblical names such as Judea, Sidon, and Tyre. He told them the rapture was coming and that the world would end on 15th of April this year. He allegedly ordered them to starve themselves and their infants to death so that they could escape the apocalypse and meet Jesus in heaven. So, this is a detail about the cult. But there is no suggestion in this that there is a cult at all in the London Metropolitan Police. So, what is the motivation for the behavior of these police, armed police, who behaved like a cult and came and murdered these two baby dogs in front of their dad in Limehouse, only few hundred years from Canary Wharf in Tower Hamlets? There is no reference to any of these being commented on or acknowledged by the mayor in the name of Tower Hamlets, Lutheraman, or by the mayor in the name of Greater London, Sadiq Khan. And most certainly there is no reference to this atrocity committed by the police by Suela, Ibila, Cruella, Fernandez. Why is it important that there is no comment by her? Because she put on a propaganda onslaught against the collective image of Essex police for allegedly visiting the White Hart Inn in Grays in Essex following a complaint about the pub having gollywogs displayed. The police didn't commit any offense, they didn't threaten them, and yet she went out of her way to condemn them. And she, in fact, echoed all the sentiments of the Mississippi lynchers. So, what Suella, Ibila, Cruella, Fernandez is actually doing is she is behaving as if she is the representative in the government, in the United Kingdom government, of the what used to be called the British National Front, or the later one, National British Movement, or a representative of the later versions of various different organizations, differently named organizations, or she is a supporter of the culture of incitement of hatred that Boris Johnson voluntarily appointed himself to be. When he said that Muslim women wearing burqas resembled bank robbers. Just to bring it home, Boris Johnson has never been reported as having expressed any similar hostile, hateful utterance against any Hindu person or Hindu faith generally. Suella Braverman has adopted a name Braverman. Her actual name before the marriage was Fernandes. And Fernandes is a name based on the Portuguese colonization of Goa off the coast of India. The Fernandes name comes from there. Now, Suella Fernandes was born in England to parents that came from Goa, but didn't come from Goa directly because they emigrated from Goa to Africa. And they left Africa just in time before Suella Fernandez was herself born. Whatever the experience of the details of the anti Asian drive that took place during the late 1960s into the early 1970s in Africa, the fact remains that those Indians who migrated to African countries and had set up in the main businesses as compared to their corresponding residents from the Kenyan or the relevant African other countries like Uganda, Kenya, or Malawi. These are the three countries that actually upped the attacks on the presence in Africa of Asians. Suella Braverman and Rishi Sunak, both born in Britain, in England, actually born to parents that went from India to Africa and were driven out of Africa to come to England. So, whatever the details of the actual hatred they felt, insecurity felt, terror that they felt, cannot be minimized. And the terror that they felt before they were impelled to leave Africa must be comparable to the terror that Suella, evil or braver man, is inflicting on the most vulnerable people in the migrant community and among the people who are so called supposedly settled people in the United Kingdom. arriving in the United Kingdom not through the boats but mainly lawfully legally. So Suella Braverman Fernandez is not behaving as compliant with the legal obligations that every member of parliament in the United Kingdom is obliged to observe and uphold and adhere to and respect and recognize and implement. So the complaint against Suella Fernandez with the England Bar Standards Board alleging that she has been breaking the code of conduct that every licensed law trader as a barrister is obliged to follow. So the complaint against her is long overdue. The complaint has only been launched this month, but she has been breaking the professional code of conduct for several years. We shall be continuing the essay length updates on Suella, Ibila, Cruella, Braverman. Now back to the Sunday Times under the world news. On the bottom of the page, that's got bottom of the page 18, that has got their one of their chief foreign names, foreign correspondent, Christina Lamb. The heading is Pakistan has a history of arresting prime ministers. But this is different. What she is meaning by this is the arrest of Imran Khan. So she says that she has been doing this for 35 years. Let's read the first paragraph of that item. In 35 years of covering Pakistan, there is barely a single prime minister that I haven't seen in the dock of a court or being bundled into a police van. Locking up former leaders had been part of political life for decades before Imran Khan's detention on Tuesday made global headlines. So, what is she meaning by this being different? So Christina Lamb is saying in a meandering way how dishonest that Imran Khan has got his supporters are way ahead of the other political parties in social media, and that there is support for Imran Khan among the lower ranks of the Pakistan army. She is not really saying anything original. Again, this is a subject of essay length investigation which we shall be updating on. Moving back onto the piece in the Sunday Times by Rod Liddell, who is a dirty digger promoter. I mean, Rod Liddell has got two platforms. I'm not counting the radio and television networks, but he's got a platform on the Scum and on the Sunday Times. However empty and vacant and stupid, he must be getting quite a hefty sum from Rupert Murdoch. Now, I have thought about the similarity between him and Jeremy Clarkson and Matthew Paris, to name the only three of the writers, so-called columnists. Every single one of them writes in a mechanical, programmed way, including the Sun on Sunday piece that is published under Karen Bradley. Is it Bradley or Karen Brady? Karen Brady. Now, Karen Brady is being portrayed in the Sun on Sunday as a thinking woman. But she was not known as a thinking woman when she actually served as a what is called the pornographer's mole. She was the main mole that the pornographer David Sullivan used for years. And she is a fixer. And she is completely full of praise for the racist criminal Alan Sugar. The racist criminal Alan Sugar is a traitor. It is the Labour Party that made him a member of the House of Peers. And then he betrayed the General Labour Party, and he has been acting as an addendum to the conservative anti Labour Party kind of narrative. Karen Brady is one of the fronters on the corruptly operated apprentice criminality at the expense of the license fee payers. Now, Karen Brady is there for 12 years, she says today. And the BBC should not be having something like that. Now, there is no accountability demanded of the abuse of license fee payers' money by the likes of Alan Sugar or Ian Pissoff being given pretexts of programs so that they can be given millions of pounds. And without any exception, all of these, Alan Sugar, Ian Pissoff, Paul Martin, they are all not critical of the BBC's corruption, BBC's racism. So we shall be doing the essay length investigation on all of these. So this one is 1 hour 18 minutes and ending at 14:22 hours GMT on Sunday, the 14th of May, 2023.